Welcome back to another episode of the MacRumors Show, everyone. My name's Dan. We have Hartley here. Hartley, good afternoon. How are you doing, man? How are things?
I'm good. I am every day checking Apple's newsroom, every day patiently waiting for these new iPads. I am grateful we've had the MacBook Air, but there's still a lot left on the list for early 2024 that I want to see.
Are you grateful? Has it
I
provided
am.
you with loads of content?
It hasn't provided me with loads of content, but I always have been tempted to buy a MacBook Air. So
You should.
When I see a new model come out, every single time I go through a few weeks of, I'd quite like to buy one of those, or what would the configuration be? So it's given me a little bit to think about in that regard.
Are you the type of person that likes to go to like coffee shops and stuff to work, or do you just strictly in your home office and that's it?
I used to quite like working out and about when I had a 15-inch MacBook Pro, but I just can't do it. Currently I have a 14-inch MacBook Pro, and it's just a little too small. So that's why I'm now kind of interested in the 15.2-inch MacBook Air, because I think, would that kind of breach the gap for me enough? I think maybe what I'll do is I might buy one and try it for a couple of weeks, and I can always return it, because I am kind of fussy about the display size. I don't want a 16-inch MacBook Pro. That thing is too heavy. It's too bulky. And it would spoil it for me, I think.
It's also the display quality that is an issue, because I think that when you look at a MacBook Pro display for so long and then you go to the MacBook Air, you're like, man, this is... But like, here's the thing. If you haven't used the MacBook Pro display in a while and you go to a MacBook Air, like, I don't know that you're really going to notice that big of a difference.
I will say that during the day when I'm working, so call it 7 or 8 hours a day at my desk, I'm using an LG Ultrafine 4K, which is not a particularly impressive panel that is like on the old 4K iMacs. When I go in the evening and I disconnect from my external display and I'm just using the MacBook Pro, I don't really ever think about the fact that what I'm looking at is a ProMotion display and what I'm looking at is mini LED. So I don't know why that is. Maybe I'm just not very observant. I think maybe it's because I've been using it for so many years now. I'm just kind of over it, and I'm just glad to just have a decent screen. I don't think maybe I'm thinking too much about it, and that is why also I think maybe I could let those things go. But I'm sure I would complain about it initially. But I think I could live with it.
This is a fantastic segue into our main conversation, that is iPads. And we've kind of already spent a lot of time on the iPad that everyone's waiting to see, which are the OLED iPads. But I think one of the more like under the radar iPads that we're also expecting to come out this month is the iPad Air. And this is the first time that we're ever going to get two iPad Air models, two different iPad Airs. And so would you like to brief us on what those two models are going to be?
So one model is going to be a direct successor to the existing iPad Air, which has a 10.9-inch display. So we're expecting just a successor to that machine. So largely the same with an improved chip. So we're expecting the M2 and maybe some other internal tweak specification upgrades. But the really interesting thing is the larger model that is being introduced alongside this. So this will have a 12.9-inch display, which of course we have been very used to on the iPad Pro now for a long time, since the iPad Pro was introduced, in fact, a 12.9-inch display. And this will be an LCD display. So it will be kind of similar to what we had on the iPad Pro, the larger iPad Pro, before it switched to mini LED. However, it won't have ProMotion. So it will be the same sort of LCD panel across both models, but now you just get the smaller size and the bigger size, mirroring what we get with the iPad Pro and with the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus, with the MacBook Air 13 and 15 inches. So Apple definitely is keen on offering two display size options now, at least across mobile products. The iMac, not so much. But we don't used
to like the iMac.
They did, but it's like as they moved away from it on the iMac, every other product line has got two display size options now, which is great. I think it's there's a really good use case for each of the display options that are offered. So when you consider, it wasn't so long ago actually that when you did buy something like an iPad, you only had one model, or an iPhone. There was only one model, one display size. And while maybe I remember those times a little bit too nostalgically, I do think that
I kind of miss those times.
Yeah, so do I. I miss the simplicity of it. I miss not having the decision fatigue and feeling like I'm missing out on something. But I can see that there is an audience always for a slightly larger or a smaller device. So in the instance of the iPad Air, there are definitely people that maybe consume a lot of content on their iPad, but they don't really need like a LiDAR scanner and an ultra-wide lens and ProMotion, and maybe they even don't care about mini LED. Maybe they don't even know what mini LED is, but they just want something to watch Netflix on when they take a flight. In which case, this iPad Air is a really good device, or at least I think it should be. It's just, I think price is going to be a little bit of an interesting question.
I mean, to me, it seems like it's just going to be basically the iPad Pro that we have now with just lesser display quality. I mean, and I say that based off of, at least in terms of performance, you're getting the M2 chip now, so you should get very similar performance in that regards. I'm wondering if the RAM will be the same. Also, Apple is so weird about like telling us what RAM they have and like advertising that compared to other products out there that are not made from Apple. Like that's usually like RAM, storage, CPU, GPU. This is what you get. If it's not a computer, you do not know, for the most part, anywhere on the specs, right? That's like obvious and forefront what the RAM is. So I'm long-windedly saying I don't know what the RAM is on the iPad. Is it 4 or 8 on the iPad Pro, or 6? I don't even know. It's somewhere around there, right?
I think it's 8 because it's paired with the M2.
That's what I thought.
So, or it's paired with the M1 rather. So it's 8. And
it's 8.
The M2 will be the same, so it will also be 8. Although, of course, on the iPad Pro, there is, I believe, a 16 gig iPad Pro model when you upgrade the storage. So
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so they do. That's the only time they will mention RAM to you when you're purchasing an iPad, which is it
says 16 gigs on models with 1 or 2 terabytes. That's interesting. I'm surprised.
It is interesting. I would really like to talk to people that purchase that for that reason and understand why. And I know that there are people that do have very iPad-centric workflows. I just think they're very few and far between. And we, I don't know if you checked your email inbox, but we actually got an email from someone that was talking about their iPad workflow. And I'm always really interested to hear those kinds of stories because I've just never been able to make the iPad work for me. And that isn't a performance issue. It's not a software issue. I basically work in a browser all day. It's just the sort of little intangible extra friction that you have when using an iPad. So I love to hear about people's workflows. It's actually one of my favorite kind of Apple YouTube videos or productivity YouTube videos that I have the patience for, even though I'm doing, I'm into tech all day. It's the one thing that I will always watch, is like a 20-minute video of someone explaining why they use an iPad for work, because I'm sort of so intrigued by it.
I mean, aside from my videos, of course, right?
Of course. I mean, I don't miss a single upload. I've got post notifications on.
Really? Because I believe you just said before off camera that you haven't seen the latest MacBook Air TikTok. So you know what?
Yeah, we can forget about that one.
Hey guys, just want to let you know that this episode of the MacRumors Show is sponsored by Incogni. The US has a big data privacy issue that you probably aren't aware of, and that's people search websites. These websites create detailed personal profiles on millions of Americans and publish them online for anyone to see with a simple Google search. Like, go do it right now. There's probably tons of info about you or your family members that you might not want online. People search can be abused by those with bad intentions. Incogni puts an end to this problem in just 3 easy steps. You just create an account, grant Incogni the right to work for you, and they will contact data brokers on your behalf and request that the information be removed. And then all you need to do is kick back and relax and watch Incogni work their magic, and they'll give you progress updates on how things are going along the way. And I've heard some pretty crazy stories about how people could use these people search websites for malicious intent, like a road rage incident gone bad, where someone will look up your license plate, maybe you cut them off on accident, you didn't notice, but that person's fuming with anger, and they look your name up via via your license plate on a People Search website, and that'll give them all of the personal data, maybe even your address, and they could come try to find you. Incogni, removing your data can also help cut down on those terrible robocalls, since we have a bunch of those on a daily basis, or at least I do personally. And since data brokers are mostly the ones selling your personal phone number to these companies that have these call lists, Incogni will take care of that as well. So take back your personal info and check out Incogni today. Use code TheMacRumors at the link below to get an exclusive 60% off an annual Incogni plan. That's incogni.com/TheMacRumors to get 60% off an annual Incogni plan. Thanks, Incogni, for sponsoring this episode. No, I don't care. I don't even watch my own videos. That's why we have other people watch it, to make sure there's no mistakes. I can't watch my own stuff. Anyways, so you brought that up. I remembered getting this email later last night. So I like briefly looked at it, but I kind of want to read what this person said, because we did ask, and I'm going to ask again, if you have like a specific workflow via iPad or MacBook Air, I would love to hear what that is. And I think other people would too. I think that'd be kind of a cool episode. We should get like a bunch of these and then go through people's workflows and talk about it.
Yeah, I'd be really interested to.
Yeah, let us know what you think about that. Also, I've been meaning to say this, and we're 10 minutes in, so hopefully you're all still here. If you have not already, could you rate the show? Go to Apple Podcasts, give us a rating. If your rating inclines to be, pretty high, that would be nice. If you have a particularly salty rating, maybe you save that one. I don't know. Maybe we don't have to do it. Just a thought. I'd rather you yell at me personally than add the ratings in there. Just saying.
And I also rather that you yell at Dan.
Yeah. Oh, no. Okay, yeah, just me, not Harley. Harley's like a baby fawn. We don't yell at him. Anyways, this person, Scott Munns, he reached out to us and said he listened to last week's show about the M3 MacBook, and for quick reference, he has an iPad Pro 11-inch from 2022, and he uses it while mobile around town and when at his businesses. Congratulations for all your success. He has multiple businesses. That's great. I use mostly for Excel, Word, and a few apps like iMovie and Garage to make some horrible, in my opinion, videos for social media. I'm sure they're fine, man. Don't be so hard on yourself. I chose the iPad Pro over the MacBook Air due to three things. He can get a cellular on the iPad, where the MacBooks, you don't have that capability. Right on, Scott. More people should be pissed that Apple still doesn't offer cellular data on a MacBook. I don't understand why. People say it's because of the iPhone and the hotspot. I think that's garbage. I don't want to use hotspot on my phone ever. In fact, I rarely ever do unless it's like a dire emergency. But people were like, oh, I just use hotspot and that's more than enough. And it's like, I don't know that it is. I would rather just spend like $20 a month extra and have an iPad that has, cellular, and I don't have to worry about it. And it's got its own data plan, and I don't have to worry if I'm going over, because like my current plan, I believe I get a certain amount of gigs per month. And like, I just want my MacBook to have that option as well. I don't understand why we can't do that. Anyways, so he doesn't want to use hotspot because he's limited, throttled, 20 gigs of data, just basically what I said. And he burns through most of that within the first few months. And so that's the main reason, it seems like. And then the second reason is that his MacBook doesn't have a touchscreen and his Apple Pencil doesn't work with that. Obviously, another flaw. I'm not really sure if I would totally want to see a 2-in-1 option for a MacBook. I would love to see what that would look like just as a fan. I'm not sure that I need that, but I would like it. I mean, I guess I've always
support is a big deal, though. I think that's really the thing, because if you like making handwritten notes, if you mark up documents, you receive a lot of emails, you have stuff to sign, maybe you receive some graphics and you want to like circle the stuff that you want to edit or whatever it may be. You want to highlight some text. It's the Apple Pencil does provide a better experience than really anything you're going to be doing on a Mac.
Dude, how great would it be if they, and I'm not saying they don't innovate. They innovate in different ways. But if they were being truly innovative, like the last time I feel like something that Apple did that was completely unnecessary, that other people just don't ever do, is the touch bar. Yeah. The touch bar. That was like the one thing, came out of nowhere. No one asked for it. And I didn't love it, but some people did. Now imagine if Apple did that in the sense of like the bottom portion of your MacBook, right? Where your trackpad is, and then there's that just dead empty space. if we were able to make that trackpad kind of flush with everything and it all was the same surface in a way, and that could be written on with the Apple Pencil. And I think there was like a rumor back in the day about taking your pencil and writing on your trackpad.
Yeah.
But like, I don't think that's enough room. So imagine if you can have like that entire bottom area as a surface to write on or draw on. That would be really cool, right? I don't know how many people would need that, but I feel like it could be super useful, especially if you're a professional out there that wants to take notes. Like you said, you're in a business meeting. I know so many people that bring an iPad so that they could strictly just write out notes. If that was your case, where you could write out notes like next to it, move the trackpad up on your paper. It's kind of like move, or, you know, touch screen, however you want to do it. I don't know, man. I think that would work really well. So I don't know. We're kind of off topic. It's in a way, it has something to do with iPads. We're getting there. And last, he does miss some functions of Excel when he's on the iPad. But, you know, when he gets home, he uses his MacBook. But that's his take on the MacBook Air and why he basically chooses the iPad Pro, because he wants more of that mobile, on the go. I have cellular data and I have touch input. So yeah, would love to hear from more people about that and what your primary workflows are when it comes to having a MacBook Air or having an iPad as your full-time, like, getting stuff done machine. But back to the iPad Air. We are expecting the M2 chip. We were talking about that. That's basically what led us off into this tangent of like performance.
The advantages that you'll get from M2 are, it's obviously a faster clock speed. You're going to get an extra, what I think is 2 extra GPU cores. And you're going to get faster memory bandwidth. But then there's also some other enhancements, like the M2 has a new image processor compared to the M1. So that's why Apple is able to do stuff like put the exact same webcam in a MacBook and then update the chip and the webcam will look better. In particular, I don't know if you remember when they did that in 2020 with the M1 models, and the hardware was exactly the same, but the camera looked way better. So that is now something else that we can expect from the iPad Air, and then you're going to get all the other sort of hardware accelerated media and the neural engine, those sorts of upgrades. So I think the M2 it's a good all-round chip. I cannot really fathom how many people who are iPad Air customers and not iPad Pro customers that will actually leverage that chip to its full potential. Because I understand, even if I can't do it personally, or I don't enjoy it personally on the iPad Pro, I do understand how there are people that are in LumaFusion and they are transferring large Photos files and editing them with the Apple Pencil. There are people that do have Pro workflows on their iPad. Those are iPad Pro customers. So in the iPad Air, I don't know how important it's going to be that it's going from M1 to M2. It's good, and we obviously want to see those specification upgrades. The M1 now is getting on for 4 years old, so it is time to give it that chip bump. But I don't know how many iPad Air customers out there are going to be thinking, I really want that M2 chip as opposed to M1. If they're choosing between, say they want the 10.9-inch model, they are using a model from a few years ago, maybe like the 3rd gen iPad Air, and they're thinking, do I get the M1 or the M2 iPad Air? I don't know that the M2 is really gonna be the thing that makes that an easy choice.
I should edit this podcast on the iPad and see if I can, like, it's not a particularly tough edit compared to like other videos that I make where it's a lot. But like the point of me saying that is like, I kind of want to know, another question out to everybody is like, have you ever pushed your iPad Pro, specifically the latest one? Like, have you ever pushed it to the point where it was like, you know, you're on a Mac and like you get the spinny wheel? What's the equivalent on an iPad that's like the spinny? Is it like springboard reloading? Like, what is the equivalent of that? Do you know?
I don't know.
Does that exist?
I don't know.
Has anyone ever pushed it to that?
I don't think that that you would ever really get to that point, because also the way that iPadOS and iOS are optimized is completely different to macOS. And so it was actually not that long ago that iPadOS apps couldn't even take advantage of having additional memory. So when you bought that, I believe when they first went on sale, those 16 gigabyte iPad Pro models, they served no purpose within individual apps. They only helped with multitasking. That additional memory only helped with multitasking. It did not help an individual app if it wanted access to more memory. So I don't know how noticeable that would really ever be, but I think it's always worth trying it out on the iPad Pro. I'd encourage you to try and edit the podcast on it. I will definitely. It's a matter of time before I again pick up my iPad and I try and do a day's work on it, but then give up like 2 hours in. And it's not because I can't. Yeah. It's really not that I can't. It's that when I'm at a desk, I'm not out and about. I don't need a touch screen. I'm not using the Apple Pencil. I don't need cellular data either. And I am on a display that is smaller than my Mac. I am not with a proper cursor, and I do not have a windowing system as effective as on a Mac. And it's therefore just slower. Everything I do is slower because when I'm, say, in WordPress and I'm publishing articles to go on our site, everything is squished together in that tiny window. So that is not a good experience, and it means that I'm just slower checking that everything is correct before it goes on the site. Whereas when I'm on a bigger display, everything is scaled better and I can move things around way more easily. It's just a better experience, unless it's Apple Music, in which case it is always better on the iPad.
So what I was going to say is, how much have you tried? Now, I know you were saying when you were on the go, and that's not something you can do when on the go. I get that, but you're mostly now. You told me earlier that you're mostly at your desk. So why not use the external display and plug in and do that? Have you tried that?
Yeah,
for a real day's worth of work?
I have tried that, and that does remedy some of the problems. At that point, it becomes a little bit harder to describe. I think it's more of a cursor issue. I don't know why it does not feel as fast, and it is not a tracking issue because, of course, you can change the tracking speed in settings. And I sort of keep adjusting the tracking settings because I keep feeling like the cursor is not moving fast enough. But there is something about how, even though you have a cursor on the iPad, it is like a stubby point because it is designed to be like a finger. And you just lack that precision, even though it transforms when you go over text, say, and it becomes effectively the same as it would be on a Mac where you just get a fixed line that you can slot in between characters. It doesn't feel the same, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
And that bugs me when I'm working. And then it just becomes, even when I am using my external display and I'm kind of placing the windows that I want. So I'm happy I've got my iPadOS Apple Music. That is one great advantage. But then when I've got everything else and I'm kind of clicking stuff in the dock and it's opening in the wrong place or it's opening up a new space, everything just feels way slower. And I just want to get my work done. Ultimately, I'm not there to sort of have a good time using iPadOS. I just want to get like the article written. I want to just look up whatever I need to look up. And say if I want to download an image and I need to change it to be 16 by 9, because that's what all of our images are for our articles on our site. That is going to take me, I'm going to suddenly on the iPad, I've got to think, well, hang on, what app am I using? Do I save this in Photos first or do I save it in Files? Whereas if I was on my Mac, I just drag it to the desktop or right click, go straight to downloads. Then I can open Affinity, and it's just. I
feel like you just got to mess. I feel like you just got to do it. I feel like the more you do it, then you'll start to figure out the answers to that.
It's not that I can't do it. It's just slower by a little bit. So it's almost like wearing inappropriate shoes or something. It's like you can do it. But just why would you want to if it's just not as comfortable?
Hurts.
Yeah,
Harley can do it, but it hurts just a little bit.
Yeah. It's not unbearable, but it's just not necessary.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm also just the last thing I'll say about this is I am intrigued by visionOS and when I get a chance to try that out because of course that is built on iPadOS. So am I going to kind of have the same feelings? But then if I can use my Mac in visionOS and then have my nice visionOS Apple Music window to the side of my Mac, is that going to finally do it for me? Maybe.
Remember when we were talking about how it hurts? It's going to hurt way more doing that one. It's gonna
well, that's going to physically hurt.
Yeah, physically hurt a lot if you're using it all day. Okay, real quick. We were talking about displays. Do you think the M3 iPad Pro will get the same dual monitor support that the MacBook Air just got and the MacBook Pro is going to get if you close the lid?
That's a really interesting
I just thought of that while
question.
we were talking about it.
That's really interesting.
Because there's no reason why it couldn't, right?
I think the answer to this question is it should, but it won't.
But it won't. Typical Apple fashion.
Because it should have been able to with the previous MacBook Airs. It absolutely, both the M1 and the M2 should have been able to do that. So if that's the case, then the M1 and M2 iPad Pros should also have been able to do that. So maybe Apple will do that, but we haven't really seen that much of how Stage Manager can be more flexible, because when you use it with an external display and you go in settings, you get very rigid options about your iPad is either to the left, the right, the top, or the bottom. There's no, you can't drag it to be in a more specific location. So
like you can on the Mac.
So until they improve that kind of experience as well, I don't know if it's really going to offer that this year. But maybe eventually it will. They are going to run out of features to really be putting on the iPad. So I think if they need to bolster that external display support, then fine, good.
Okay. I was just wondering. We love Apple. I'm not trying to hate on them for saying typical Apple fashion, but sometimes they just do things that are super frustrating.
We know how they work. And 99% of the time it makes a lot of sense, but sometimes by their own admission, sometimes it doesn't always work.
All right, back to the iPad Air. We're trying to talk about the iPad Air. We just keep going to the pros because in reality, it is the more interesting. But I am interested in a larger iPad Air because it's in theory supposed to be cheaper. That could be a really good content experience for maybe my kids, if we're on the go and they don't really love the minier. Wow, I can speak English. The miniature screen size with the mini that I give them sometimes, or if they really just want something more, I don't know. But that's always an option, or if it's just a family tablet that people want to use to get online. Because in theory, it's going to be able to support the Magic Keyboard, but because it already does support the Magic Keyboard for the 11-inch, so there's no reason why it can't support the 12.9. But because it's a 12.9 and not a 13-inch like the new iPad Pros, and there's that whole new rumored Magic Keyboard that should be coming, our guess is that it's not going to support that redesigned one, correct?
Yes, although I don't know if it's a size issue. I don't know.
Well, not a size, but more of a design issue?
I don't know why, but my expectation is that the iPad Air will be compatible with the existing Magic Keyboard models. So those will be unchanged. Those will still be on sale and probably a little bit too expensive. I really hope they get a price cut. But then for the iPad Pro, you can choose that Magic Keyboard or some new high-end accessory. And you
think it's going to be the Magic Keyboard Pro? You think it's going to get a renamed?
Maybe. It's got to sit above it in the lineup. And because it's going to have this aluminium top case, and it's going to have a larger trackpad, and it is going to supposedly provide a more laptop-like experience. So I don't know if that means it's going to be thicker. I don't know if that means it's going to have ports on it. Maybe it will have a MagSafe connector on it, and it won't actually be on the iPad, it will be on the keyboard. But even having an extra USB-C ports that you can actually use for data on the side of the keyboard and combine that with a bigger trackpad and a metal top case, that is a pretty significant upgrade. But I don't know how or why it wouldn't be compatible with the iPad Air. Maybe it will be, but I do seem to remember reading from one of our sources that would not be the case. Maybe I've just imagined that.
From a business perspective, it makes sense in what Apple does usually, so to just not work.
Maybe there'll be a reason
when it's more of a specific Pro thing. Think about the Apple Pencil not working with the latest iPad that just got redesigned, the Apple Pencil 2. Why? What's the reason for that? They could have done that.
There's got to be some sort of design reason, though, that it doesn't fit, even if it's just the magnet placement. And because there's MagSafe charging on the, I don't know, but there's got to be some reason. They say that if it's got MagSafe 3 pass-through charging, that is not supported on. I don't know that. That can't be it. But I think there's got to be a reason, because otherwise people will stick their 12.9-inch iPad Air on the brand new Pro Magic Keyboard. So unless there is a physical reason that it won't do that, I think it's pretty hard for Apple to justify why that wouldn't work, unless there is some reason. But I'm struggling to think of what that might be. But maybe I've just imagined that rumor. I'm doubting myself now.
I mean, I just assumed it wouldn't be compatible, but maybe it will be, and that'll be a pleasant surprise for those who want to turn their larger, iPad Air into more of a laptop-like feel. So then what about the Apple Pencil 3? Because we're rumored to have one of those. Do you think it's going to support that? Or because it does currently support the Apple Pencil 2.
I think that probably on balance it will support it. And I think that there will be no change to the charging technology. I think it will be exactly the same inductive charger on both the iPad Air and the iPad Pro. And I think the Apple Pencil will charge in the exact same way. But if, and it's a really tiny if, they do move the camera to be in landscape like it is on the iPad 10, then that inductive charger pretty much has to change. And it has to move in some way. And the Pencil also probably will have to change in turn. So if that's the case, maybe the iPad Air would also get that. But I think it's very unlikely. So all in all, yes, it will support Apple Pencil 3 would be my expectation. I don't think they're going to sell Apple Pencil 2 for the iPad Air, Apple Pencil with USB-C for the iPad 10, the first generation Apple Pencil for the iPad 10 and the 9th gen iPad, but then the Apple Pencil 3 for the iPad Pro only. I don't think that they're going to make that even more confusing.
What about if they did do that, where they moved the cameras over, got rid of the Apple Pencil 2, and eventually gets rid of the first gen Apple Pencil, and it just becomes Apple Pencil Pro and Apple Pencil USB-C, and that one just works for everything else. It's not a Pro.
That works. That does work. But I don't know if they would do that with the iPad Air, because the iPad Air is like the trickle down from the iPad Pro. So we get all of the technology that was introduced on the iPad Pro a few years later in the iPad Air, a little bit like the MacBook Air. So I think that with that in mind, it's questionable if they would do something with limiting the support. Because also the Apple Pencil with USB-C, the great thing about the Apple Pencil with USB-C, which people don't have a lot of love for the Apple Pencil with USB-C, but this is the one thing that is really good about it. And you have to remember this, which is it works with all iPad models except that 9th gen, which is going to be discontinued soon. So even if you have an iPad Pro, you can plug it in with USB-C, you can charge it, and it will work with that just fine. So I think we're going in the direction of the Apple Pencils working across the lineup with more stuff rather than less stuff and more confusion.
That would be the dream, right?
Yeah.
Just no confusion, make it simple.
We'll get there. I think we will get there. I think this year will be the year for the iPad lineup. When that 9th gen goes away, when the 10th gen comes down in price or is replaced by an 11th gen that also is cheaper, and we have more keyboard options, and we don't have that first gen Apple Pencil sticking around, and the price points are different as well, because if with OLED, that we're expecting on the Pros, we're expecting at least $160 more. There have been some estimates that are saying it'll be like $400 more. I think that maybe those have been a little bit exaggerated, but we are expecting some price increases. That creates that little gap for the 12.9-inch iPad Air. So if we then have the cheaper entry-level iPad 10 or 11, and that is the only entry-level iPad at $349, and then we have the iPad Air 10.9-inch at, I don't know what that is, $599. I'm just guessing. I really do not remember.
Yeah, $599, and I believe, is what it started at.
And then at maybe $699, we get the 12.9-inch. And then starting at $999 or maybe even $1099, we get
That's a huge gap.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe there will be like a $150 or $200 difference between the 10.9 and the 12.9-inch iPad Air, because for the MacBook Air, it's $200. So $100 for the iPad Air might be a little bit too small. Maybe they'll do like $150. I think they're going to struggle if they make it more than $200. So I could see like $599 and $699 or $599 and $749. That sounds okay for a 12.9-inch iPad.
Sure. I still think Apple should. And I'll give you this advice for free. Well, not for free. Apple has trillions of dollars. Maybe you can throw me some bones here and there, but like I still think the perfect theory is not theory. The perfect lineup theory for this is do what I said before. Get rid of that 9th gen like they already are. You got the redesigned 10th gen, and then it'll be the 11, whatever. The numbers don't matter anymore in this whole thing as well, because it's going to be iPad, which will come in mini format. Either, what's the size? The size is the only thing that matters. So the size of the iPad mini is 7, or is it 8?
It's 8.8. 2 or 3?
2? Sure. No one cares about the exact. It's 8 inches. Let's just call it 8 inches. 8-inch iPad mini. So not iPad mini, I'm sorry. 8-inch iPad or the 11-inch iPad, right? Is that what the size is for that?
It's 10.9, but yeah, call it 11.
8 and 11. So you got the iPad. It's what it's called. Actually, no. See, that's the thing. That's the only thing that I have to figure out is what do you call that entry-level iPad? Because you can't call it iPad, because in my case, I wanted the middle ground
iPad
just to be
SE.
called the iPad. Oh, yeah, that's right. iPad, that's what I said. iPad SE, and it comes in the 11 and 8-inch. They're basically the same product at this point now. And then you go just iPad, which is what the iPad Air is, and then you have the iPad Pro, which is what the iPad Pro is. It's not that hard. They come in 2 different sizes. Ideally, we would get the sizes to be the same for the iPad and the iPad Pro across the board. Just make them both 11 and 13. That would be fine, but whatever. Yeah, I think it's simple. It could be simple if you wanted to. And then to round it all out, you have one Apple Pencil that works for all of them across the board.
Well,
or if you want to get crazy,
your Apple Pencil with USB-C,
you could do an Apple Pencil and an Apple Pencil Pro. If you really wanted to get crazy and you wanted a more sophisticated Apple Pencil for the Pro models, fine. And then you could do the same thing with the Magic Keyboard. Magic Keyboard Pro.
I think that works.
It's never gonna.
I think the only problem with that plan is the Mini, because right now Apple made a calculation and thought, we don't know if we want the Mini to be entry level or if we want it to be high end. So they thought, let's just stick it right in the middle, because what the iPad Mini effectively is just a slightly less powerful iPad Air, but for some reason with a True Tone flash. I don't know why the iPad Air does not have a flash, but the iPad Mini does.
Well, because it's not too large to take pictures with it.
Yeah, but the 12.9-inch iPad Pro has a flash. So
well, now you're getting crazy.
Yeah,
don't debunk my theories.
But regardless of that, Apple made that calculation and put it right in the middle of the lineup. It's what, $499? And they're kind of hoping that they capture a little bit of the entry-level market. You know, they can sell some refurbished models. And then if you are a pro user, you will at least tell yourself, well, I'm just happy to have an iPad mini, and it does at least have like a laminated display and a chip that is not too old. I mean, it's got the iPhone, what would it be? The iPhone 13's chip? It's got the A15. So, yeah.
Let me fact check you on that for a
second.
second.
I feel like I'm throwing out all these claims in this episode, and I actually have no idea whether any of this is right.
A15 Bionic. 8.3-inch liquid retina display, by the way. Honestly, my entire suggestion gets thrown out if we keep clamoring for an iPad Mini Pro. Because I said I want 2 sizes across the board, and then I'm like, well, wait a minute.
But that's the thing is, what do you do with the iPad Mini? That is the question, and I don't think Apple really has the answer. In the same way that they didn't really know what to do with a mini iPhone. They couldn't decide, is the smallest iPhone the SE, and we bring back like an older, smaller design, or is the mini iPhone something that I mean, they obviously never did this, but is it a pro thing, which is what the community seems to really want? Or again, they went middle of the road and thought, let's just make it a sort of standard thing right in the middle. And that's what the iPad mini is at the moment. But it is effectively an iPad Air. So we're talking about the iPad Air right now in terms of what we're expecting. This is going to be the same. When we're in the second half of the year and we're talking about what we're expecting from the new iPad mini, it will be the same upgrades. The only difference will be chip. Yeah. It probably won't get a Pro chip. It looks like, based on some chip identifiers that we saw recently, it will get an A17. So that is the same that was introduced in the iPhone 15 Pro. So, or I mean, it may. We don't actually know it will be the A17 Pro. I'm kind of getting into the technicalities now. It might just be some other kind of A17 chip or some variant of it in some way. But we are expecting it to be an A17 because we've seen in Apple's chip identifiers that they are working on another A17 device with an iPad identifier. So it makes sense that is a mini. So yeah, that is where we are with the mini right now. I just don't know what Apple really does about that long term.
So my other thought process to the lineup was that they could just model the MacBook. The MacBook has 3 MacBook Pros. I didn't really think about that. The MacBook has 3 MacBook Pros. The MacBook Air has 2. So just do that, and then make the third MacBook Pro would be that MacBook Pro, or I'm sorry, the third iPad Pro would be the iPad Pro Mini, and that could just be like it could be like an M2 chip while the other ones have an M3, and it's a mini LED. It's basically what it is now, just truncated to an 8-inch form factor.
I feel like people would hate that. People would actually. Why? Because it would make the lineup so messy.
Oh, because it's not messy now?
Yeah, it is. It is messy, but like I don't know if that's better.
Why wouldn't it be? So hear me out. Whoa. There's no more iPad 11th gen. That's gone.
Right.
That's gone. It's just iPad Air and iPad Pro.
Right.
The first iPad Air is the same price as the current iPad 11th gen.
Okay.
Then you have a bigger version, a bigger model. And that is a couple $100 more, or whatever. Okay, whatever the price difference is between a 13-inch MacBook Air and a 15-inch MacBook Air. Then you go to the Pro lineup, and if you want to do 3 and 3, that's fine. We don't have to model identically to it. So you could do iPad Mini size 8, 11, and 13 inches. Let's just use those for example. Those are the 3 sizes for each. There you go. Done. Absolutely done. What else? I just solved your problem. If you don't want to put an OLED screen in,
I would love that. But I'd love that personally, but I think the issue is then like, what about if you just want to buy like an iPad Mini for your kids? They don't need.
Get the iPad Mini for your. Then get. No. I just said you can add a third one, an iPad Mini, to the regular iPad.
That makes sense. Okay, now I follow.
So the iPad Air comes in 3 sizes: 8 inches, $279. 11 inches, $349, $379, whatever, and then the highest one, the 13-inch, is $499. Boom, yeah. And then you go what? $799 for the Pro version of the 8-inch, $999 for the 11-inch, $1199 for the 13-inch or whatever. I mean, it's not that hard, but it just gets messy and convoluted for no reason. I feel like sometimes
it's because
I don't know. I feel like people are gonna hate this.
Yeah,
people are absolutely gonna.
I feel like it's difficult to please everyone because even then, someone will say, I know what one of the first comments will be, which would be, "Oh well, Apple sells loads of iPads."
I'm glad you don't work at Apple.
That would be the second one. The first one might be, but Apple sells loads of iPads for education, and that's why they have that 349. iPad. So what is that now? And then you would have
it's now the iPad Air. Congratulations, kids at school. You now have a better iPad.
Yeah, but schools are not going to pay $200 more for that. And suddenly,
it's $379. It's the same deal, and then you give them an education discount. Whatever.
So you're basically
I'm
making
basically making the iPad Air $200 cheaper and selling it as is.
Okay.
So honestly, if you have a problem with that, then you're just a capitalistic person, and I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. So the only person who has a problem with it would be Apple, because they're like, why would we do that? But I'm just saying they could have done this in a way. I think I'm ultimately saying the iPad Air either needs to be the only main iPad that's not an iPad Pro, or it doesn't need to exist at all. And that's kind of where I'm at on that.
Okay.
So happy iPad Air month.
Well, we'll also get the Pros.
I don't know.
The Pros will outshine the Air this month, unfortunately. But
well, for sure.
There will be some people, like an average person that does not follow Apple News and is not even aware that there is a new iPad Air coming out, and someone that just strolls into an Apple store at the end of this month and says, I just want a really big iPad. You know, maybe they're buying it for like one of their parents. It's their only computer. And they want them to have a keyboard, but they don't want a proper computer. They just need something to like send some emails and like buy stuff on Amazon. Then that Apple Store employee can say, perfect, we've got this 12.9-inch iPad Air, and you have your Magic Keyboard accessory with it. And it is perfect for those sorts of customers. It's just in the tech community, it's just inevitable that we're going to get more excited about the Pros.
Yeah, and I'm trying so hard to, like, every time I think about this for the everyday person. So I know people are going to be like, why are you trying to get rid of the normal iPad? I'm just trying to make it simpler, and I'm trying to give, you know, more iPad for less.
You're just trying to cut the prices.
So maybe just make my first suggestion the reality. Then you have the iPad SE, you have the iPad, you have the iPad Pro.
Yeah.
Or just, I don't care what the names are. I don't care about any of this personally. I just want there to be like more consistency throughout the lineup. So it's not hard for me as a reviewer and just tech enthusiast who often gets the question of, hey man, what iPad should I get? I have to be like, okay, well, what are your use cases? What is important to you? Then you should probably look into this. But if you want a bigger screen, you're going to have to go to this one. But if you want Pro, you're going to, like, it's a lot. It makes my life easier if they could just
tell me how you feel about the pricing of the Magic Keyboard, because it bothers me, but I don't know whether, like, where is the right spot for that? Because if you're spending, what are we saying, like $799 on a 12.9-inch iPad Air, what is the right price for a Magic Keyboard accessory? Because I think all in all, that package has got to stay under $1,000. And ideally, with the Apple Pencil with USB-C, it should still be under $1,000.
Well, that's where it might make sense that this is actually going to happen, where the newly redesigned Magic Keyboard becomes the Pro model, and that takes on the new price.
Yes.
And the other one gets cut down to like $100, $150. I think $150 is okay.
$150.
And then if you price that, and then if you go $599, $699 for the iPad Air, then you're still $150 with $7, so $850 plus tax. You're at $900. That's still a lot of money.
I sort of wish that Apple would offer a combination discount for when you buy these accessories together. That would be very Apple-like, but I think that if you are purchasing that device and you are buying something that goes with that, it's for some like iPads, say the 9th gen iPad, or the 10th gen iPad rather, that Magic Keyboard Folio, or we argued about what this was called last week, and I still can't actually remember now what we decided it actually was called. But whatever that keyboard accessory is, the Smart Keyboard Folio. If that's a lot of money, that keyboard, I think it's like $200. So if you're buying that alongside your iPad, which itself is like $499, I think it is, something like that. I get confused with the dollars, but I think I get an excuse because it's not my currency. But I feel like there should be the situation where if you're in an Apple store buying that, or even with a third-party retailer, a third party should be able to say, well, if you buy these things together, then you get like $50 off. It doesn't sit right with me when it's a direct accessory. A little bit like when you bought an Apple Watch, if it did not come with a band. I feel like, especially with the iPad Pro, that keyboard is more or less essential, especially on the larger model. How many people have the 12.9-inch iPad Pro right now, but have no keyboard and use it with no keyboard accessory?
Oh, I can't imagine that's a fun experience ever.
Yeah, it's. I mean, sometimes I use my 12.9-inch iPad Pro on my lap, but that is an unusual occurrence, and I will then go and put it back on its Magic Keyboard. So I don't know, but I feel like it sort of is becoming a little bit of a necessity to use it with a keyboard, and Apple moving that camera to landscape on that entry-level iPad really was an indication that Apple is also understanding that most people do use an iPad with a keyboard now, and a trackpad for that matter.
So you know what's funny? I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm looking this up right now, like we're not killing Apple. I mean, we're just trying to be offering suggestions to like how to fix this because we think it's kind of a convoluted mess at times. Have you looked at Samsung's offerings?
I have not. Take me through Samsung's offerings.
There's so many that I'm like, you know what? The iPad lineup's starting not to look that bad. There's the Galaxy Tab. Like the price points are really nice, I will say. Yeah. But there's the Galaxy Tab A9 Plus. That is the cheapest option at $219. Okay. That is the cheapest one. And sorry, their website's a little sketch at times. It starts at $219. You can upgrade the RAM. Why are we upgrading things in an entry level? I don't know, but you can upgrade the RAM from 4 to 8 gigs, okay? But they market that as, what does it say? Level up family fun at an incredible value. Awesome. Okay, so that's the A9 Plus, right? Then you get into the S series. So the S series, now you have the Galaxy Tab S6 Lite, which is at $349. So again, I said the price points make sense. You're going from $219-ish to $349. Okay, pretty big jump there. You get a 10.4-inch screen. Looks like it's a little bit better. You can't upgrade the RAM, but whatever. Then there's the Galaxy Tab S9 FE series, which how many models do you get with that one? That one has the FE and the FE Plus, so that's $449 to $599. Either one of those, and you can upgrade the RAM to 12 gigs. So you're starting to get into like the iPad Air territory, I guess. A little more powerful, I guess, in the specs department, at least on paper. And then you're at the Galaxy Tab S9 series. So there was the FE and then the just the regular F9 or the S9, which now comes in. By the way, are you able to keep up with this?
I'm trying.
My point is, I think it's impossible if the people haven't already driven off the road while listening to this.
The Android tablet market is tiny. If you are that sort of person and you want to work on a tablet or you want to use a tablet, even just for handwriting notes, those customers go to an iPad.
Yeah.
So how many?
Well, hold on.
Tablets
on the Tab S9, there are 3 models. There are 3 models there. So I think that puts us at 2 models for the FE, 2 models for the S9 or S6, whatever, and then 1 model for the other one. So 3, 2, 5, 7, 8 different models that you can get, which is wild. You get a Tab S9, Tab S9 Plus, Tab S9 Ultra. By the way, those tablets are incredible. I will say, those are really good options. I don't know about the other ones, but also they definitely are in the same price points as the iPad Pro and the keyboard. Like they do the same thing that Apple does. They have a non-mouse or trackpad version for like $199, I think. And then they have a $349 keyboard. But they do the detaching thing that the Folio does. So another thing that I hope Apple kind of does. Yeah, sorry about all of the reading through that, but I feel like it's good to have some perspective at times because we have to step outside the bubble and see that, okay, maybe I don't know who, I guess Apple's to blame here because, Samsung was trying to catch up in every category and trying to make an iPad for everybody. If you're getting an Android tablet, you either go with the high-end S9 because those are really good.
Yeah.
or get a Pixel tablet. Otherwise, just go to the iPad. I don't know.
Might be okay at the entry
right.
level if you just watch like YouTube and Netflix, or it's for kids.
Oh, well, yeah. And for kids, man, we say that. How many adults out there, if you've made it this far, please tell me, how many of you have been like, oh, it's for my kid, I don't care, I'm just going to get him the Amazon Fire tablet? And then how many of you absolutely want to bash your head into the wall when you're trying to set up an Amazon Fire tablet? Because I've done that before, and I've sat there thinking, I'm going to throw this thing in the garbage, and I'm going to give my daughter, who absolutely does not need a iPad or something more expensive, I'm going to give that to her, because ultimately, whenever I need to help her with something, I can do that without going crazy. It takes me about, let's try not to exaggerate, I would say to download an app or go in to change a setting, it probably takes me 5 minutes as a whole to do that, because the touch input is so bad. The loading is so bad. She constantly runs out of storage. It's not fun. So honestly, if you're like, oh, I just want something cheap for my kids, don't do that. Don't do that. Get the highest, cheapest thing that you can afford, because you're gonna save yourself. Now, there are Fire tablets out there that are a little bit better than that. The one that I got my daughter, it was also like $60, so you get what you pay for. But
iPads do last forever, and you can get refurbished models. So even buying like an older iPad is a great proposition.
Oh, my dad has like the 2nd generation iPad Air, I think, and he still uses it and has no problems with it. And I keep telling him, like, his only problem is that he can't upgrade the software anymore. and like some apps just don't work anymore. And like we still have an iPad mini 4th gen. I believe that's what it was, the iPad mini 4. And I gave that to my son when we went to Disney World. He's 2. He doesn't need an iPad, but he needed one for that specific plane ride. And so I got him an iPad. And so the limitations was I can't download Disney because Disney only works on newer software and I couldn't upgrade the software. But otherwise, my experience of downloading something and getting him set up was so much better than getting my daughter's Amazon Fire. It's horrible. Okay, last thing I want to ask you. Are we going to get iPads this month, yes or no?
I'm going to say announcement, yes. Whether they will actually launch this month, I don't know. I mean, let's take a look at the calendar here.
It's got to be next week or the week after. There's no other opportunities.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think that maybe what they do is they announce on the Monday 25th or 26th, and then they launch. They might even launch 2 weeks later, but chances are it would be on the Friday 29th. But
that'd be my birthday.
Mark Gurman said that it could be April, but they could always announce it sooner. But if it's just a press release, then I'm inclined to think it's not going to be that long before launch. It's different with an event, or if there's some sort of delay. Or we did hear that the iPad Pro 11-inch, the OLED panels might be in short supply, which means that model might be in short supply. So maybe they might do something like they announce on Monday 25th, then on Friday 29th, 3 of those models go on sale. So you get both iPad Airs and you get the larger iPad Pro, and then the following Friday you get the smaller iPad Pro.
All right, well, let's go. I'm getting tired of this. I want to see them. Let's get it going. I want to get this iPad so I can inevitably not use it 6 months later. Okay. All right. Yeah. We'll let us know in the comments what you guys think as usual, and we'll catch everybody next week in our next episode. See you later.